The Millennial Kingdom is a big topic. It's a core idea for many Christians when they think about the future. It's about a time when Jesus Christ will rule on earth for 1,000 years. This isn't just a spiritual reign in people's hearts. The Bible talks about it as a literal physical kingdom on this planet. It's a time of peace, justice, and righteousness like the world has never seen. The main place we get the number 1,000 years is from the book of Revelation, chapter 20. But the idea of a future golden age, ruled by God's chosen king, is woven all through the Old Testament. It's the fulfillment of many promises God made a long time ago. So, let's start with that key passage in Revelation. The Apostle John has seen visions about the end of time. In chapter 19, he sees Jesus returning to earth in a powerful, dramatic way. He comes as a conquering king, not as the gentle shepherd from his first visit. He defeats the armies of the world that have gathered to fight against him. This is often called the Battle of Armageddon. Right after this massive victory, we get to chapter 20. John sees an angel come down from heaven. This angel has a great chain and the key to a bottomless pit, sometimes called the abyss. He grabs the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil, or Satan, and binds him up for 1,000 years. He throws him into the pit and locks it. This is a huge deal. For 1,000 years, Satan's direct deceptive influence on the nations is stopped. He can't stir up trouble and rebellion like he does now. This act is what makes the 1,000-year reign possible. With the great deceiver out of the way, the world can finally experience true peace under its rightful king. Then John sees thrones, and people are seated on them. They are given the authority to judge. He also sees the souls of those who have been executed for their faith in Jesus and for the word of God. These are the martyrs. They had not worshipped the beast or its image, the great evil system of the end times. These people come to life. They reign with Christ for 1,000 years. This is called the first resurrection. The Bible says the rest of the dead, the unbelievers from all of history, don't come back to life until the 1,000 years are over. John says that those who take part in the first resurrection are blessed and holy. The second death, which is eternal separation from God, has no power over them. They will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years. This is the core biblical description of the millennium. It's a period of 1,000 years on earth where Christ rules directly. His resurrected followers, the saints, rule alongside him, and Satan is locked away. It sounds simple, but it raises a lot of questions. Who else is there? What is life like? And what happens after the 1,000 years are up? To answer those, we need to look beyond just Revelation 20 and connect it to the rest of the Bible. The Old Testament is filled with promises about a future kingdom. God made a promise to King David called the Davidic Covenant. He told David that one of his descendants would have a kingdom that would last forever. His throne would be established for all time. Christians believe Jesus is that descendant. His first coming was to suffer and die for sins. His second coming is to rule and reign as the promised king. The Millennial Kingdom is the literal fulfillment of that promise to David. Here Jesus will sit on David's throne in Jerusalem and rule the world. The prophet Isaiah gives us some of the most beautiful pictures of what this kingdom will be like. In Isaiah chapter 2, he talks about a time when the Lord's house will be the most important place on earth. All the nations will stream to it. They will say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths." The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And then comes the famous part. He will judge between the nations. He will settle disputes for many people. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. This is a picture of total world peace, brought about by the direct rule of the king. Isaiah chapter 11 gives us more detail. It says, "A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse, who was David's father." This is the Messiah, Jesus. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. He will have wisdom, understanding, counsel, power, knowledge, and fear of the Lord. And his rule will be perfectly just. He won't judge by what he sees or hears. He will judge the poor with righteousness. He will give justice for the meek of the earth. With a word, he will strike the earth and slay the wicked. Righteousness and faithfulness will be like a belt around his waist. Then Isaiah describes nature itself being changed. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat. The calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear. The lion will eat straw like the ox. An infant will play near the cobra's den. Nothing will harm or destroy on all my holy mountain. Why? Because the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. This isn't a metaphor. It describes a restored creation, a return to the harmony of the Garden of Eden, all because the king is present and ruling. So, Who will be living in this kingdom? There seem to be two main groups of people. First, there are the resurrected believers. This includes the Old Testament saints like Abraham and David, and the church saints, everyone who believed in Jesus from Pentecost until his return. They will have glorified, resurrected bodies, just like Jesus has. They won't be able to sin or die. They are the ones who rule and reign with Christ. They will be the administrators, judges, and priests of the kingdom. But there's another group. There will be people who survive the terrible period of judgment before Jesus returns, often called the tribulation. These are people who turned to God during that time but did not die. They will enter the kingdom in their natural mortal body. They will be the initial subjects of the king. They will get married, have children, and repopulate the earth. These are the people who will beat their swords into plowshares. They are the ones who will live to be 100 years old, as Isaiah 65 says. Life will be very long and prosperous. The curse on the ground from Adam's sin will be lifted or greatly reduced. The land will be incredibly fertile. Amos the prophet says the farmer will be overtaken by the reaper, and the one who treads grapes will be overtaken by the one who sows the seed. It will be a time of incredible abundance and blessing. The nation of Israel plays a central role in this kingdom. The Old Testament is full of promises specifically for them. God promised them a land, a nation, and a king. While they have faced centuries of scattering and persecution, many Bible passages suggest that during the millennium, all of God's promises to Israel will be completely fulfilled. The prophet Zechariah says that in that day, the Lord will be king over the whole earth. And he describes the nations of the world coming up to Jerusalem year after year to worship the king and to celebrate the Festival of Tabernacles. Now, Jerusalem will be the capital of the world, and Jesus will rule from there. This is when Israel as a nation will finally recognize their Messiah and enter into the fullness of the new covenant that Jeremiah prophesied, where God's law is written on their hearts. So, you have Jesus as the supreme king in Jerusalem, you have resurrected saints serving him in glorified bodies, and you have mortal, natural people living all over the world, having families, farming, and living in peace. Justice will be swift and perfect. Christ will rule with a rod of iron, which means he won't tolerate any rebellion or injustice. If there's a dispute, it gets settled correctly and immediately. There won't be corrupt politicians or unfair legal systems. The king himself ensures perfect righteousness. This seems like a perfect world. And it is, almost. But there's a crucial detail. The people born during the millennium, the children of the tribulation survivors, will still have a sinful nature. They will be born into a world without a tempter, a world where the king is visibly present, and where righteousness is the law of the land. They will have every possible advantage to follow God, but the choice will still be theirs. This is one of the most profound aspects of the Millennial Kingdom. It will be the ultimate test case for humanity. It will answer the question, if you remove Satan's influence and create a perfect environment, will the human heart naturally turn to God? This brings us to what happens at the end of the 1,000 years. Revelation 20 tells us that when the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be released from his prison. He will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, called Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. The number of them will be like the sand on the seashore. This is a shocking event. After 1,000 years of perfect rule by Jesus Christ himself, a massive number of people will choose to rebel. They will march across the breadth of the earth and surround the camp of God's people, the city he loves, Jerusalem. This final rebellion demonstrates a sad truth. The problem of sin is not ultimately in our environment or our circumstances. It's in the human heart. Even in a near-perfect world, the heart that has not been truly changed by God will choose rebellion when given the chance. But this rebellion is short-lived. Fire comes down from heaven and devours them. And the devil who deceived them is thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. This is the final, ultimate end of Satan and all evil. After this, John sees the great white throne judgment. This is the judgment of all the unbelievers from all of history. They are judged according to what they have done, and anyone whose name is not found written in the book of life is thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. Then, and only then, after the Millennial Kingdom and the final judgment, God creates a new heaven and a new earth. This is the eternal state described in Revelation 21 and 22. It's a place where there is no more death or mourning or crying or pain, because the old order of things has passed away. The Millennial Kingdom is not the final destination. It's a transitional kingdom. It's the final stage of God's plan on this current earth before he makes everything new for eternity. It serves to fulfill all his promises, to demonstrate his perfect justice, and to prove once and for all the depth of human sin and the necessity of his grace. Now, it's important to be honest and say that not all Christians see this the same way. There are different views on how to interpret these prophecies. The view I've just described is generally called premillennialism. means before. It's the belief that Christ returns before the 1,000-year kingdom begins. He comes back to establish the kingdom. This view tends to take the prophecies of Revelation and the Old Testament quite literally. When it says 1,000 years, it means 1,000 years. When it talks about Jesus ruling in Jerusalem, it means he will be physically present in Jerusalem. Another major view is called amillennialism. A means no. It's the belief that there is no literal future 1,000-year kingdom on earth. Amillennialists believe the 1,000 years in Revelation 20 is a symbolic number. It represents the long period of time between Christ's first coming and his second coming. This is the church age, the time we are in now. In this view, Christ's kingdom is spiritual. He is reigning now from heaven in the hearts of believers. The binding of Satan is understood differently too. It doesn't mean he's completely inactive. It means he is bound in such a way that he cannot stop the gospel from spreading to all nations, which was something he did effectively in the Old Testament era. When Jesus returns, in the millennial view, he returns to immediately conduct the final judgment and usher in the new heavens and new earth. There is no intermediate earthly kingdom. People who hold this view point out that the book of Revelation is full of symbols, so we shouldn't take the number 1,000 literally when we don't take other numbers and images literally. There is a third view, though it's less common today, called postmillennial. Post means after. This is the belief that Christ returns after the millennium. In this view, the millennium is not a kingdom established by Christ's physical return, but a golden age of peace and prosperity brought about by the church. Through the preaching of the gospel and the influence of Christians, the world will gradually get better and better. Society will be transformed. Eventually, a long period of righteousness and peace, a millennium, will dominate the earth. After this golden age, Christ will return to a world that has been largely Christianized. This view was very popular in the 18th and 19th centuries, a time of great optimism and missionary expansion. But the two world wars and the challenges of the 20th century made many people question the idea that the world was naturally getting better. So you have these different ways of looking at it. Premillennialism sees a literal future kingdom on earth established by Christ's return. Amillennialism sees a symbolic kingdom happening now, spiritually, in the church. Postmillennialism sees a future golden age brought about by the church before Christ returns. Understanding these differences is important. Good Bible-believing Christians hold all of these positions. The debate is about how to interpret the prophetic parts of the Bible. Do we take them literally unless the context forces us to see a symbol? Or do we see them as largely symbolic unless the context forces us to see them as literal? Your answer to that question will likely determine which view you find more convincing. Regardless of which view someone holds, the core truths are the same. Jesus is king. He will return one day. He will judge the world. He will defeat evil, sin, and death completely and forever. And he will usher in a new creation where his people will live with him in perfect fellowship. The details of the timeline are debated, but the final outcome is not. So why does the idea of a millennial kingdom matter? Is it just a piece of theological trivia for people who like to argue about the end times? I don't think so. First, it gives a profound sense of hope. We live in a world that is clearly broken. We see war, injustice, poverty, sickness, and death. It's easy to get discouraged. The promise of the millennial kingdom is a promise that God has a plan to fix this world. It's not just about escaping to heaven, it's about the king coming back to this earth to make things right. It's a promise of restoration. The same planet that saw his crucifixion will see his coronation. Second, it speaks to God's faithfulness. God made specific, unconditional promises to people like Abraham and David and to the nation of Israel. The millennial kingdom is the time when all those promises are fulfilled down to the last detail. It shows that God is a promise keeper. What he says, he will do. This should give us confidence that he will keep the promises he has made to us as believers in the church as well. Third, it provides a final, undeniable demonstration of God's glory and Christ's authority. For all of human history, people have tried to rule themselves. We have built empires, created philosophies, and tried to engineer perfect societies. And they all fail. They all end in corruption and decay. The millennial kingdom will be the one time in history when the world is ruled by a perfect, righteous, all-powerful king. It will be the ultimate political and social system, and it will show the universe what humanity was always meant to be under its true Lord. Finally, thinking about this future kingdom should change how we live now. It puts our current struggles into perspective. The problems we face are temporary. The injustices of this world will not last forever. There is a king coming who will set everything straight. This doesn't mean we should sit back and do nothing. It should motivate us to live as citizens of that coming kingdom right now. We are to be ambassadors for the king, telling people about him and living by his values of love, justice, and mercy. We know the end of the story. Evil doesn't win. Death doesn't win. Satan doesn't win. King Jesus wins, and his victory will be put on full display for 1,000 years on this earth before he makes all things new for eternity. That is the promise and the hope of the Millennial Kingdom.